Tetsunosuke Seki. I would like you to hear my views on the incident outside Sakuradamon. It all started with the great prison of Ansei. The punishment of many noblewomen and exponents of the principle of no longer being barbaric led to the tragedy that followed.
What were your thoughts about the decision you made at that time, Grand Elder?
I believe it was a necessary measure to protect the stability of the country and the authority of the shogunate. But to think that this would be the motive for antagonism and attempts on my life.
The conclusion of the five-party Treaty of Ansei also provoked a great deal of opposition.
Yes, that policy, also known as the bloodless opening of the castle, which allowed foreign ships to enter the port, sparked discontent among many citizens, especially among the expulsionists.
That backlash ultimately led to the Sakuradamon Incident, didn't it?
Quite so. On the morning of March 3, 1860, without warning, I was attacked on my way from Edo Castle to my home.
What emotions were you feeling at that moment?
With surprise, I felt, what can I say, like an inevitable fate.
We, the attackers, felt that your policies were putting the country in danger and were determined to resort to force.
When I hear these thoughts, I am struck once again by how many enemies my policies have made.
What happened to the Ronin after the raid was carried out?
Many were captured and severely punished. With this, the authority of the shogunate seemed to be temporarily restored.
But it also accelerated the decline in the authority of the shogunate, didn't it?
That's right. After my death, the power struggle within the shogunate intensified and politics became even more unstable.
We are told that the incident had a great impact not only on the samurai but also on the common people.
That incident was the catalyst for many people's interest in politics.
What were your thoughts on the assassination of Ii-sama?
It exposed the divisions that my political methods had caused and ultimately ended my political career along with my life. It was also the moment when my efforts were cruelly shattered.
It would have never occurred to me that it would end that way.
Not at all. I have tried to live up to my principles, but this is the result.
We, too, fought to realize our ideal world. We just had different means.
Seki, I never expected that your actions would lead to the subsequent upheaval at the end of the Edo period.
As part of the transformation demanded by the times, we have taken our place on the stage of history.
There are some things that cannot go against the current of the times. I guess I was part of it.
The Sakuradamon Incident was certainly one end and a new beginning.
One could say that my death opened the door to a new era. Tragic as it is, that is the irony of history.
There is a deeper reason behind the Sakuradamon Incident than mere political dissatisfaction. At the time, we Ronin of the Mito clan had a strong sense of crisis about the policies of Ii.
What exactly was the crisis?
It was a sense of violation of our country's sovereignty by the opening of the country and the five-power Treaty of Ansei. We felt that unequaled treaties with foreign nations were endangering the future of our country.
But that treaty prevented international isolation and was in keeping with the times. Why didn't you understand that?
Even though it is the trend of the times, it is our natural right to resist if it shakes the very foundations of our country.
What does it mean to shake the very foundations of a country?
It is a threat to the independence and dignity of our country. The convention has granted many privileges to foreigners and created areas where our laws do not extend.
That is certainly a problem, but diplomacy requires compromise. It is difficult to negotiate while maintaining complete independence.
That is why we should have taken a more hardline stance.
A hardline stance is not always in the national interest.
However, a weak diplomacy will demoralize the people and lead to a national crisis.
How exactly was the morale of the people affected?
Many citizens were disappointed and anxious about the shogunate's seeming acquiescence to foreign pressure.
How should I have resolved that concern?
First, it was necessary to emphasize dialogue with the people and to make the decision-making process of the shogunate transparent.
Do you think more transparency will lead to less backlash?
Yes, if the public understands the policy formation process, there will be less anxiety and more support.
Isn't that idealistic? In reality, information can be confusing in many situations.
It is not the disclosure of information that causes confusion, but how that information is handled.
Nevertheless, the reason for the Ansei rebellion was to stabilize the country. What do you think?
Many innocent people have been sacrificed in the name of stabilizing the country. It cannot be justified.
Sometimes sacrifices are unavoidable. There are stakes in every policy.
However, there was a lack of effort to fairly explain its interests to the public and to seek their understanding. That is the major problem.
What specific methods does fair explanation suggest?
For example, they should intensify their public relations efforts and explain to the public in detail the background and intent of their policies.
That may not solve all public discontent, but it may be worth a try.
With accurate information and transparency, at least misunderstandings can be avoided. That is important.
That may be so, but sometimes there are situations in which a quick decision is required. In such cases, it is difficult to disclose all information.
Nevertheless, disclosure of as much information as possible is necessary to build trust.
I agree with you on building trust. However, we must be cautious in how we do this.
We should be cautious, but nothing will change without action. The Sakuradamon no Hen is one manifestation of this.
Violence is not justified for the sake of change.
The lack of dialogue was the reason why violence had to be chosen. There should have been more opportunities for discussion.
That's right. If there had been more dialogue, the tragedy of the assassination could have been avoided.
The fact that we are talking like this now about the importance of dialogue is something in itself.
It certainly will be. Reflect on the past and apply it to the future. That is what we can do. Although the authority of the shogunate was temporarily shaken after the Sakuradamon incident, its effects were felt for a long period of time.
Indeed, that incident marked a turning point in the political situation at the end of the Edo period. How do you think our actions affected the upheaval that followed?
Ii's death freed many people who had been oppressed by the great prison of Ansei. This intensified the power struggle within the shogunate.
It could be said that this accelerated the weakening of the shogunate. The immense power that the shogunate had was gradually whittled away.
That is correct. The diplomatic impact of my policy cannot be overlooked. The policy of opening the country to the outside world was essential for the subsequent modernization of Japan, but it also created a lot of discontent.
It is certain that the policy of opening the country to the outside world brought an influx of Western culture and technology, which had a profound impact on Japanese society and economy. This led to the Meiji Restoration that followed.
Considering the course of the Meiji Restoration, the Sakuradamon no Hen could be said to have contributed to hastening it.
It can be said that our actions have ultimately accelerated the transformation of Japan. However, it is also true that many sacrifices were made in the process.
Sacrifices were inevitable, but we now understand that the changes brought about by these sacrifices were important to Japan's history.
If Ii had lived, what kind of policies would you have developed?
Had I survived, I would have been more active in domestic reform. However, it remains to be seen whether this would have been accepted by the public.
We, as the revered king and expulsionist group, have always been opposed to Ii-sama's policies, but we agree on the need for reform.
We feel the same way about our country, just in different ways.
The difference in methods led to tragic results, but history is the accumulation of such choices.
Looking back, I must admit that my hard-line approach has created a deep rift with many people.
We always need to review our policies and methods. Considering the situation at the time, one can see how difficult it was.
Indeed, it was difficult to do the best one could within the constraints of the times.
Along with the constraints of the times, how our actions will be evaluated by history is also an important question.
History is left to future generations to evaluate, but we hope that our intentions will not be misunderstood.
Dialogues such as ours are crucial for accurate historical understanding and evaluation.
Understanding each other's position and embracing the diverse perspectives of history through dialogue will be a lesson for the next generation.
If we can show that understanding and dialogue is possible even between a politician like Ii-sama and us Ronin, that would be a great step forward.
If our experience can teach future leaders the importance of dialogue and understanding, then my life has not been wasted.
There are still many lessons to be learned from the Sakuradamon Incident, each of which should serve as a valuable lesson in shaping Japan's future.
We need to continue to emphasize the importance of learning from history.
That is exactly right. History has much to teach us. It is our responsibility to apply those lessons.
The Great Prison of Ansei, which I promoted, much of it was based on my political philosophy. But there were also many enemies it created. I am still conflicted about this.
The tension brought about by that policy ignited the hearts of our Ronin. Fearing for the future of our country, we were compelled to take action.
I gave top priority to the stability and order of the country. I did not realize that this would result in turning many aspirants against me.
Ii-sama, the fear and anger over your policy was shared among us. This led to our decision to resort to force.
My intention was not merely to maintain the authority of the shogunate. It was also to advance Japan toward a new era of opening to the outside world.
But the way it proceeded was unacceptable to many. It was seen as disrespecting the emperor and making concessions to foreign nations.
Building relations with foreign countries was an inevitable process, but it may have been my fault that it lacked domestic understanding.
For us, it was felt that the future of the country depended on that blunder. This resulted in the Sakuradamon Incident.
At the time, I had no doubt that my policy was the right one. But now I sometimes question the method.
Ii-sama's doubts are the same as those felt by many of the people. Our actions represented that anger and anxiety.
All I wanted was prosperity and stability for my country. But the voice of the people, which I ignored in the process, resulted in the end of my life.
Dear Ii, your death was a tragedy for many. It marked the end of one political and a new beginning.
If my death was the beginning of the end of something and the beginning of something again, perhaps it was the meaning of my existence.
Our actions have also involved many sacrifices. We are constantly asking what has changed as a result.
Tetsunosuke Seki, the changes caused by your actions accelerated the road to the Meiji Restoration. That is an undeniable fact of history.
In the course of that history, we sometimes wonder if we made the right choice or if there was another way.
There is no right answer to a choice. We just have to choose the path that seems best for the situation at the time.
Ii-sama, there are many aspects of your political line that I do not agree with, but I understand your heart for your country.
Perhaps we were pursuing the same goal in different ways. I feel I can share that feeling now.
As time goes by, the way we look at things changes. I think I can understand a little more now what Ii-sama intended.
Tetsunosuke Seki, I hope that our dialogue will help in some way for the future. Because history should continue to be told.
Indeed, it is important for Japan in the future to understand each other through dialogue. I hope that our experience will serve as a lesson.
Tetsunosuke Seki, I would like to know your views on the impact of the Sakuradamon no Hen on our society.
Ii-sama, this incident was a direct challenge to the authority of the shogunate and greatly undermined confidence in the shogunate among the people.
As is true, the decline in the authority of the shogunate is undeniable. At the same time, however, it can be said to have awakened the people's political consciousness.
Indeed, it was the beginning of a renewed interest in politics and the rekindling of the fire of the Suno exclusionist movement.
Now, from a cultural perspective, how do you think this incident affected you?
In the midst of the increasing introduction of Western culture, I believe this incident has sparked a movement to re-evaluate Japan's unique values.
The growing demand for cultural independence is certainly an important change.
From an economic point of view, one cannot overlook how this incident affected the ongoing policy of opening the country to the outside world.
The expansion of international trade due to the opening of the country was an opportunity for some merchants. On the other hand, however, it also brought disruption to domestic industry.
The turmoil led to growing discontent among the populace and contributed to criticism of the shogunate.
The political turmoil caused by this incident prompted a review of the bakufu's policy-making process, which took some time.
In the course of the time it took, many of the samurai took new actions, which led to further upheaval at the end of the Tokugawa shogunate.
It cannot be overlooked that this incident has forced Japan as a whole to pay attention to international affairs.
Indeed, it was a major turning point not only in domestic politics but also in foreign policy.
It was also a time when I realized how difficult it is to build relationships with foreign countries.
The Sakuradamon Ii incident was not just a political incident, but also an opportunity for Japan to seek a response to the international challenges it faced.
History has proven that this incident accelerated various movements at the end of the Edo period.
A deep understanding of the ideology behind the events and their subsequent impact is essential to a proper study of our history.
To do so, I need to analyze this case from multiple perspectives.
A deeper understanding will be gained by considering the impact of the Sakuradamon Ii from each of these perspectives: cultural, social, and economic.
Tetsunosuke Seki, what do you think are the lessons we have learned through this incident?
It means being constantly aware of the far-reaching consequences of political decisions, and how those decisions affect the lives and livelihoods of so many people.
It is our responsibility to apply those lessons to future policy decisions.
And it is important not to neglect efforts to apply what we have learned through history to the future.
In order to learn lessons from history and build a better future, we need to accurately understand past events and act on them.
Dear Ii, I have gained much insight through this dialogue. I am reminded that a deep understanding of history is the key to shaping our future.
Tetsunosuke Seki, it must be some fate that we can talk like this over time.
Lady E, now I can look back on that day calmly.
I understand now how much my policies have caused you all to suffer.
The future of the country that E-sama aimed for and the aspiration of the emperor that we tried to protect, although our true intentions were different, our hearts for the country were the same.
Perhaps my methods were wrong. Back then, I was struggling to nibble against the tide of the times.
We, too, were searching for an answer as to what was best. We believed that that course of action was the best, but now we could have done it another way.
Tetsunosuke Seki, I am certain that your decisions have sounded a great alarm to the shogunate.
But it is also true that the alarm bells have resulted in many sacrifices.
Sacrificial change is often seen in history, but they can also open up new eras.
I wonder how history would have been different if you had listened more to the voice of the people at that time, Ii-sama.
I have asked myself that question. If we had been a little more flexible, we might have been able to find reconciliation without resorting to violence.
The demands of the times were severe, and each of us was trying to make something happen while being swallowed by the waves of the times.
I believe that by opening the country's gates and interacting with the outside world, Japan would achieve further development.
We chose the path of the emperor and expulsion of the barbarians, fearing that their opening of the country would undermine our independence.
In hindsight, the rigidity of our positions on both sides probably led to the loss of room for dialogue.
Dear E, the decision I had to make that day was a burden for me. I wanted to find an answer that would make everyone happy.
In my pursuit of ideals, I too have overlooked the sentiments of many.
Dear E, if we could rewind time, how would we act?
We cannot turn back time, but we can reflect on the past and apply lessons to the future.
It is our responsibility to ensure that those lessons are passed on to the next generation.
Tetsunosuke Seki, I thank you for having this conversation with you. Dialogue across history deepens understanding.
Dear Ii, I hope this dialogue will reach someone's heart.
Dear readers, we hope you can take something away from our past actions.
And we would be more than happy if this piece of history is meaningful to you. Thank you very much.